Hi you guys, today is day 8, April 1st, and today what I want to show you is when to use each method. You know there's 5 methods to solve a quadratic. One is completing the square, one is solving by graphing, one is solving by square roots, the quadratic formula, and factoring. So we're going to talk about how you know by looking at an equation which one to use. So I wrote my notes out here if you want to freeze the video and you can copy that down or just keep stopping it. But so graphing, you know, we never graph unless we're forced to. If for some reason you wanted to actually see the way the parabola goes, that's when you would graph it, but usually we are not going to choose to use that method. My first choice is factoring. I always like to factor, it's pretty easy to do, but we have to look and see if the equation is easily factored because not every equation can be factored. And then sometimes it's a huge pain, like if there's a number here and you don't feel like dealing with that. So when I look at this one is easily factored because my C is 2, my factors of 2 are 1 and 2, I know my signs are the same, yep, right there gets me to 3. So I would factor this one. Here, I have to set it equal to 0 before I even start. And then once again, my factors of 10 are 1 and 10, 2 and 5. Yes, that's going to get me to 7. I would factor this one. When it comes to square roots is pretty obvious because it's if they have no b. So remember, the formula is ax squared plus bx plus c, or standard form, I should say. And so if we have if this is missing, if we don't have an x, or if we don't have this at all, then I would use square root method, even if it isn't pretty. So right here, that's nice because 36 is a perfect square, and you would get x equals positive and negative 6. But even on this problem where it isn't that pretty, you would have 2x squared equals 20, divide by 2, and then you would just get x equals positive and negative radical 10. So even though it's not pretty, I could still solve it by square roots. So for square roots, you're just making sure that they have no b. Completing the square, this isn't something that I would usually use either, not because it's difficult, but because there's just so many steps to remember. I would never really choose this method. But if someone really liked completing the square, you would want to see that maybe there was no a, or you could factor out the a really easily, or that this you could find the perfect square trinomial, you could divide that by 2 and then square it. So if this was an odd number, I probably wouldn't use completing the square. Quadratic formula is then what I usually do is I see first, can I factor it? If I can factor it, boom, I use that method. If there's no b, I go to square roots, and then my third option is I use the quadratic formula, just because it's a pain to remember that formula, but once I have that formula down, I can plug it all in. So if you look here, could I factor it? Well, 3 times 10 is 30. Is there any factors of 30? 1 and 30, 2 and 15, 3 and 10. Nothing is going to get me to this negative 3, so I'm not going to factor it. I don't have a b. I have a b, so I can't use square roots, so I'm going to go ahead and use the quadratic formula. All right, that's basically how I know which one. I'm either going to choose factoring, square roots, or quadratic. And here I want you to write this down and freeze it, and I want you to take a guess as to which method you would use for each of those. Okay, so I'll go ahead and pause it. Okay, so now that you've answered those questions, let's take a look at this one. Which method would we use? Well, we know we're not going to use graphing. Can I factor? Possibly, but I noticed that they have no b, so I'm going to go ahead and say for this one, I'm going to use square roots. Over here, once again, I start off, I'm not going to graph it. I'm probably not going to use completing the square. Let's go to factoring. Well, okay, I have 9 over here. The factors of 9, 1 and 9, 3 and 3. My signs are different. The larger one is positive, and yep, look, that'll get me to 8. So I'm going to go ahead and use factoring. Okay, with this problem right here, once again, I know it's not square roots because I do have a b. Let's try factoring. If I put my 40 off to the side, 1 and 40, 2 and 20, 3, 4 and 10, 5, 6, 7, 8 and 5, whoops, 5 and 8. Is any combination gonna get me, my signs are different, the larger one's positive. Are any of those combinations going to get me to 8? No, they're not. So even though it looks like I should use factoring, this is not factorable because none of the combinations are gonna get me to 8. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna use the quadratic formula. All right, and let's look at D. Well, if I know I can't use square roots, I could do 3 times 5 is 15. Maybe factoring will work, but there is no combination that's going to get me to a -1. So once again, I have to use the quadratic formula. All right, so I want to talk to you really quickly about what's going to be on the quiz tomorrow. And the quiz is going to be accessible anytime on Wednesday, which is today, or tomorrow. So you basically have all day today and all day tomorrow. But once you click start, you only have an hour. I'm going to send you, or beneath this, you should see instructions on how to get access to the quiz. It's a little bit different than the ones that we were trying last week. Basically, what is on the quiz is there's questions about how to solve using the quadratic formula. There's questions about the discriminant and how many solutions the quadratic would have. And there's a few problems asking you which method you would use. All right, so that is going to be on the quiz. It will be for a grade and it will be due by midnight on Thursday. Thank you. Good luck. Bye-bye.